right, time to get you some answers here. If you are stuck at home and you feel like baking, you may not have all the ingredients necessary to make your favorite recipe, just head to your grocery store. The shelves are bare in spots. Western Mass News reporter Jillian Lopez shows us how we can substitute. Watch.
Whether you are reaching for an ingredient and realize you don't have it, or you just don't want to make a special trip to the store, there are some baking substitutions that will still allow you to whip up your favorite recipe. From our partners at marthastewart.com, here's a cheat sheet for when you're in a pinch.
Starting with flour. All-purpose flour is a key ingredient to have, but every once in a while a recipe calls for a specialty flour. But you can skip the shopping trip by putting that all-purpose flour to work. For cake flour, 1 cup equals 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. For pastry flour, 1 cup equals a half cup of all-purpose flour plus a half cup cake flour. If you are swapping out all-purpose flour for a gluten-free flour, the ratio is the same, 1 cup of gluten-free flour for every 1 cup of all-purpose flour. Moving on to baking soda and baking powder. As a substitute for 1 teaspoon of baking powder, try a half teaspoon of cream of tartar plus a 1/4 cup teaspoon baking soda. Baking soda is a trickier swap, but for every 1 teaspoon of baking powder needed, you can sub in a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. Now for dairy. For 1 cup of whole milk, you can substitute with 3/4 of a cup plus 2 tablespoons of skim milk plus 2 tablespoons of heavy cream. For 1 cup of half and half, use a half cup whole milk and a half cup heavy cream. For 1 cup of buttermilk, substitute 1 cup of whole milk plus 1 tablespoon white wine vinegar or lemon juice. Combine and let sit about 10 minutes. Moving on to fats. If you don't have a stick of butter, you can definitely use 1 stick of margarine. If you need a substitute for 1 cup of vegetable oil, try 1 cup of neutral oil such as canola or grapeseed oil. And finally, sugar substitutes. For 1 cup of superfine sugar, you can substitute it with granulated sugar ground in a food processor. Use 1 cup plus 2 tablespoons. For 1 cup of powdered sugar, substitute with 1 cup of granulated sugar plus 1 teaspoon cornstarch ground in a food processor as well. As a substitute for 1 cup of light brown sugar, use 1 cup granulated sugar plus 1 tablespoon of molasses. Add another tablespoon for dark brown sugar. And if you don't have molasses, you can substitute for 1 cup with 3/4 of a cup dark brown sugar plus a 1/4 cup of water.
And a popular vegan substitute for eggs is mixing 1 tablespoon of ground flaxseed with 2 tablespoons of water, mixing it up, letting it sit for 5 minutes, and doing that for each egg that the recipe calls for. There are so many great tips like this if you're vegan or gluten-free. Just go to marthastewart.com. Martha Stewart is owned by our parent company, the Meredith Corporation.